start with a couple of minutes of a chit chat about what happened in before the Apache incubator. I think we started in the summer of 2019, so just over 2 years ago. Actually, the discussion started with the next tool that we'll continue working on. And the idea was to build a front-end platform because, people who come from the Pentaho world probably know Pentaho Report Designer, C Tools, Analyzer. And although they all have their merits, there are decent solutions that you can build with them. The one point that we thought was lacking there is architecture. Even though the end result with C Tools can look quite good, it's all basically it's a bunch of independent sets of scripts that just throw JSON at each other, but there's no real unified central architecture. And we started talking about a platform that would tackle that problem, and we needed a data layer that would support that. And there we go. Yeah, exactly.
It's more than just an idea.
That's what we were talking about at that point and started working on, but then Hop came on the way. And the initial idea that we had was to use Kettle as the underlying data processing, data orchestration layer, but we needed more control, and that's when we started talking to Hitachi Vantara. But although a lot of people were very positive about the idea of taking Kettle to the Apache Software Foundation, so we initially talked about Apache Kettle. We just didn't get through the bureaucracy. We didn't get anyone who thought of himself as high enough up in the tree to sign and to donate the Kettle code base to the Apache Software Foundation, because that's what would have been required. And then we just took the jump, the plunge, and started Project Hop at the time. I remember we had that, the great idea. We started pretty early on with a Google document that would be the Apache Hop incubation proposal. But we started working on, stripping out Karaf and all of the overhead from Kettle. And then in November 2019 in Antwerp, we had the last Pentaho community meeting that we that we rebranded to Kettle. Yeah, because the last couple of meetups, the only decent talks, 95% of the talks were about Kettle, and the other components in the Pentaho platform disappeared into the background. So it actually was the Kettle community meeting, and we just changed the name to reflect that. And there, in November 2019, we presented the idea of Project Hop at the time. I think we were pretty convinced that we already did a lot of work back then. Karaf was gone. We had a startup time of 1 or 2 seconds. There wasn't, the splash screen was gone. And I think we had an unzipped size of 200 something megabytes back then.
Even smaller.
Yeah, and that's where actually the big work on Hop started. Then we the projects that existed as Kettle plugins for Beam unit testing, a very basic project implementation in hindsight was integrated. and we started working on that. And as the community grew, as we had more and more people on the Mattermost chat, um, I think we had the most vivid discussions about projects and environments.
Huh.
And then things started to grow, started to evolve. And then, well, and yeah, I think actually, we spent the summer of 2020 porting a lot of functionality from Pentaho to Hop. All the plugins had to be ported to the new API. And I think we, after the summer, we agreed that we were at a point that it started to make sense to join the Apache Software Foundation. So we started working on the incubator proposal again. That took a while. Then we submitted that proposal. The proposal got accepted, and that's where I think we started working towards what has now become Hop 1.0. And well, I think it has been quite the ride for everyone involved. We had to get through a lot of licensing issues and dependencies. We had a couple of surprises. The actual Pentaho kettle code base that we started from contains a couple of license violations.
The
It's
whole
Apache.
metadata layer, the
Yeah.
meta store, for example, is LGPL, which is an Apache license violation.
Yeah.
I also want to mention that what we now call Hop Web or Web Spoon from Hiromu Hota, that was also like a big influencer for us because that was refused as a patch request. We couldn't integrate it into Kettle anymore at some point because they refused to build the plugin layers to allow us to do it. I guess they had their own front end UI for the browser in mind, but that
At
never
least the
got
plan. Yeah.
released, or now it is released or in closed source. I don't know. But in any case, so the whole GUI was rewritten, not only because of that, but with that in mind. I'll post a link to a uh, a Hop UI so you can play with it if you like. Don't crash it immediately. But yeah, so those kinds of decisions, I think, from the community out, the innovation that we wanted to do, the work that I was doing for Neo4j, the projects in the solutions team, they pushed towards a direction that was antithetical to where the Pental project was going. We were focusing more on the life cycle of a project, and focusing back on the core values that maybe uh, we can talk about. We line them up on the website as well, on
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
website, the unique selling points, namely helping you be more efficient in setting up projects, but also maintaining them, putting them in production, managing the life cycle, environments, a whole lot of stuff around that, unit testing, safeguarding them, integration testing. There's like a whole list of important things, and you just can't skate around them at infinitum, right? So at some point, somebody needs to bring up the points, and we were doing that through plugins for a long time. It's still up there on kettle.be. I think it's called the Neo4j Remix. It contained Neo4j plugins and all the plugins that we mentioned. But at some point, it's not maintainable, especially since we found bugs in the original code for which we created Jira cases and patches, which not got accepted again. So that means at some point you're driven into a corner, and then you find a way forward, right? A constructive way forward, and that's what we did. So yeah.
Yeah. And with what we did, we had to, well, I think we started talking about the licensing, the dependencies. All of that had to be ironed out. We had to, well, actually, what we have as Apache Hop is still based in a way based on the Kettle code base, but that code base had to be so far away from the original thing that we had to more or less prove that Project Hop at the time was a different beast basically. Um, and we got through that point. Hans spent a couple of months of his life sifting through thousands and thousands of dependencies and license headers and whatnot. And we went through 0.60, which was a source code only release that was quite cumbersome as a process.
Mm.
We had to go through two voting rounds. I think, not sure if 0.60 was, it probably was refused a couple of times, but I don't remember. But gradually with 0.60 out the door, we had our first release, then 0.70, a first release with binaries, so the entire process. We had a work in progress disclaimer that became smaller and smaller every time, disappeared with 0.99. And with 1.0, I think we took all of the major hurdles. The brand has been, well, the Hop brand, the name, has been verified and is approved. So we took a lot of steps to get towards 1.0. So that's a bit of the background story in what apparently still took 10 minutes. um, and I guess most of you have seen well, what is available in Hop 1.0. Um, we can walk through the content of the announcement and give a bit of background there. Um, and I'll share the. So you should see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we already mentioned the code architecture, cleanup, refactoring. Well, cleanup, refactoring is pretty obvious. We had to tear down some walls, remove the plumbing, and basically not start from scratch, but we made some serious updates to the code base, and we're still cleaning up. Nico, Sergio are continuously finding uh, pieces and points in the API that still have room for improvement. But the end result is an architecture where Hop now is a kernel that is very lightweight, and all of the additional or all of the real non-core functionality is added through plugins. We have over 400 plugins in 20 plus different plugin types. So transforms, actions, database connections, relational or NoSQL are plugin types. The run configurations for pipelines and workflows are run configurations. There are sorry, are plugins. So there are plugins all over all over Hop, and that gives us a lot of flexibility. Not only can we work on individual plugins without breaking anything in the engine, we can add, remove plugins in development, but also on the user side. So you can build a Hop installation that is, I think what Dieter did was trim it down to just over or just below 30 megabytes. So you can perfectly run Hop on an edge device in an IoT project, but with the full installation, you can process petabytes of data basically. So that has been a major piece of work. I think, yeah, Matt spent ages rebuilding the architecture, cleaning up, but now we have an architecture that is ready to well, to continue working on for all of the releases to come. The Hop GUI. Anyone who has already tried Hop has seen the new GUI, and that took a bit of a change in mindset. In the early days of Hop GUI, over a year ago, I guess, a year and a half ago, we had some people who were reluctant to switch from Spoon to Hop GUI. The pop-up dialog, the context dialog is different from what you're used to in Spoon. So the left-hand side menu is gone. I don't think anyone misses that after playing with or working with Hop GUI after a while. But it is an entirely different UI, written with plugins in mind. All of the elements in the user interface are plugins, and that makes it incredibly easy to add new menu items from plugins, to add new dialogues and new plugin types, etc. So that gives us a lot of flexibility. Um, Hop GUI is available on all major platforms, so Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and with Hop Web, also in your browser. Both the desktop client and Hop GUI, Hop Web have a dark mode, except for Windows. um, but Hop GUI is turned into or evolved into a visual IDE, visual development environment that you barely have to leave these days to do. Well, you can do almost all of your work in Hop GUI. You can manage projects and environments. You can run, preview, debug workflows and pipelines. You can organize your files, edit files. The file explorer has editors for CSV, JSON, a lot of other file types. There's Git integration in the file explorer, where you can do a visual diff between two different versions of a project. We have plugin information, the search perspective, Neo4j logging perspective. So the amount of functionality in Hop GUI is already quite rich, and I think if we let this evolve for another couple of releases, it'll well improve significantly, even beyond what we have now. Well, and forgot to mention the metadata perspective. That's of course another important one, where all of your metadata types can be managed, your database connections, unit data sets, run configurations, pipeline workflow log, pipeline probe, and so on. Projects and environments are another important addition that was a result of quite a bit of discussion. What we saw in the PDI and Kettle days is that a lot of people, a lot of organizations created shell scripts and basically hacks on top of hacks to set a kettle properties for a specific project, to add simple JIND connections, shared XML, all of that, all of the different manual configurations that you had to fiddle around to separate your Pentaho environments between different projects. And that has now been built into the Hop GUI. Not only Hop GUI, it's also supported in a number of command line tools. So in addition to Hop GUI, all of the functionality except for the design of workflows and pipelines is available in a set of command line tools as well. And the projects and environments will have a home folder. The name can inherit from a parent project, which is another powerful feature. You can specify project variables, although I don't think that is very common anymore these days, because in addition to projects, you have environments. The difference between projects and environments is that in a project, you have, well, a grouping of, you keep a logical project. So your workflows, pipelines, metadata items are there. These should all be parameterized, use variables, and the actual values for your variables, for your parameters, depend on the environment and are specified in an environment with a set of environment files. So the projects and environments allow you to keep a strict separation between the code, which is your project, and the configuration, which is the environment and your environment files. And that separation makes it easy to manage your project in version control in Git. But we do advise you to manage your environment files in version control as well, just not keep them together. Well, and in combination with the project files, you can manage your workflows and pipelines from Hop GUI in Git directly. So you can do push, pull, commit, a visual diff between the different versions of a file, and that is shown in the screenshot below, where the yellow icons in the upper right corner indicate that that transform has changed. To create one row, and the hop that follows it is a new addition in that version. And yeah, similarly, you can have a red, well, crossed out icon to indicate that in a particular version of a pipeline or workflow, an item has been removed. So this gives you a lot of well, a powerful tool to keep your work organized, and is part of the entire lifecycle management that we'll get to in a minute. Um, Portable runtimes. Well, runtimes are another plugin type for pipelines and workflows. Um, the Well, the experience in the Pentaho world wasn't splendid. If you wanted to run a job or a transformation on a card server, the UI looked well, completely different, so it was hard to follow up. And that has been fixed, basically. If you now run a workflow or a pipeline, you have the option to run that on a local runtime configuration or remote. And remote, well, points you to a hop server that will, if you run locally or remotely, the UI won't change. You'll have exactly the same experience, well, if you run locally or remotely. So workflows and pipelines have these hop native local and remote runtime engines, runtime configurations. Pipelines have more options with the Beam run configurations that are also based on well, an external plugin that Matt already had for Kettle that has now become a first-class citizen in Hop. And through Beam, you can run your pipelines on Spark, Flink, or Google Dataflow. So that makes it easy to design a pipeline in your local environment and then take it to a Spark cluster, a Flink cluster, or run it on Google Dataflow with relatively little or no change. So that the ability to take your pipelines to where your data is, to where it makes most sense to run, is another major functionality boost, basically.
Yeah, and the project home folder can be any cloud URL, so you can store your project in Google Storage on S3 or in an Azure Blob store, for example. So that makes it easy to run pipelines that are defined in the cloud. You don't have to, for data flow, for example, do a Git pull into a virtual machine or something. You can just run our Docker container in Kubernetes or something to orchestrate everything, and then start a data flow pipeline, and so it's completely seamless. So
Yeah, actually, VFS is,
mhm.
unfortunately, there's so much we had to add in this overview, and VFS is one of the unfortunate missing topics. VFS for virtual file system is available, I guess, almost everywhere in Hop now, and gives
Yes.
you a lot of flexibility to read files not only directly from, for example, a CSV file in a zip file on a URL, so on a website somewhere, but also cloud drives. Dropbox is one recent addition. The three major cloud platforms are supported, so that gives you a lot of options to run Hop in cloud environments. Mm, right. Unit testing is another big one. I think it's undervalued, underused for now, but I think we'll keep stressing the importance. We'll extend the documentation. We'll make sure that it becomes better. That people become more familiar with it, because the ability to unit test has proven incredibly valuable for Hop as a project, and in general in a number of projects that we've done, is extremely valuable, because with error handling, with orchestration, you can make sure that your workflows and pipelines run without errors. If there are errors, you can handle them gracefully, but that tells you nothing about the way your data was processed. And that is where unit tests come in. In a unit test, what you basically do is run a pipeline, but replace one or more of the input transforms with a data set, replace one of the output transforms with an expected data set, so a golden data set. And when you run your unit test, Hop will replace the input transforms with your data sets, replace the output transform, and generate an output data set. And that generated output set will be compared to the golden data set. And if the two match, so if your produced output matches the golden data set exactly, your test succeeds. If there are any differences, that test fails. And we have been, or mainly Matt and Hans have been building tens of integration tests in the code, and that has proven to be extremely valuable. I think the first significant bug that we detected was one in the add sequence transform, so one that has been in the code base for ages. But there was a bug there, and it was detected using one of the unit tests, one of the integration tests. And there have been a couple of long-standing bugs that we detected and fixed because of these unit and integration tests. And if you build a library of tests that you execute frequently, you'll be able to guarantee that the data is processed exactly the way you expect it to, the way you want it to. And you'll be able to prevent regressions. If a bug that was once fixed runs for a couple of months, and there are changes in the code base that make that bug reappear, if you have a unit test, a regression test that validates exactly that bug, you'll have failing tests, and you'll know immediately when that problem reappears. So the unit tests are definitely something you should give a try. Take that for a spin. Let us know, what you think. But it is an important piece of functionality that you should try out. And lifecycle management is basically a wrapper term for everything we just covered. Your projects, your environments, version control, testing, the ability to run in a Docker container, in Kubernetes if you want to. All of that makes sure that you can handle your projects over time, in the long run, make sure that your project stays manageable. And that is where a lot of the additions in Hop compared to Kettle start to make sense. A data project is a lot more than a folder of, or well, a group of folders with workflows and pipelines. The ability to reliably and robustly run those workflows and pipelines time and time again with expected results, with logging, with monitoring is what is very important, and that is where we have been working on to get all the pieces of the puzzle in place. And there's still some work to do, but 1.0 is a really good start to manage your projects in the right way. And in addition to the unique selling propositions for Hub that we just discussed, right above that page in the user manual, there is a best practices page, and that's worth taking a look at as well. We'll continue to extend on that, but a number of best practices for the design, the naming conventions, the setup of your entire project really helps a lot. uh, yeah, Hop is just a piece of technology. If you take these best practices into account, you can build some really powerful and reliable projects. And then finally, community, all of you, and a lot of other people who couldn't join today, is well, have been one of the driving forces of this whole 2 years of development. Yeah, it's been incredibly valuable to get all the discussions in Mattermost, to see the Jira tickets coming in, to get feedback, the number of people who follow Hop on social media, talk about Hop, well, file bugs, file feature requests. It's yeah, this is what Hop is all about. And with the situation of the well, the global pandemic improving, I think it will become easier to have even more local user groups, have in-person meetings, and that, well, that's great. We encourage, I think everyone in the community enjoys talking about a platform that you believe in, that you work with, that you want to help grow. And we have number of user groups now in Brazil. I think they had, no, I don't think, I'm pretty sure, they had over 100 users in the first week. And I think Ricardo just joined. But we have, yeah, that's a massive user group. We have groups in Japan, Spain, Italy. There probably will be a German meetup pretty soon. So the amount of activity is growing every month, and that's perfect. That is what being an Apache software, an Apache project is all about. There's one thing is the software and the legal process that a software release at the Apache Software Foundation is, and the second one is the community. So community 1.0 is probably just as important as a Hop software release 1.0, and we hope you all will join us in building Hop community 1.1 and 2.0 and so on. And that's the end of the page and the end of my. I'll stop sharing now.
So yeah, so that was quite a story. Um, I think we've stopped innovation for a few months. I think between 0.99 and now, in the sense that we wanted to build a stable release and not change anything. But in the meantime, 1.1 is already being built with a bunch of new features. More to the point, a lot of improvement to the Hop server. Maybe I can show a few things of that. Um, let's just do that, right? And then maybe later Hans can talk a little bit about 2.0 and Java 11 because he opened the branch for that. Yeah, I know I'm presenting. Um, so for the hop server, um, I we added a bunch of features to allow projects to be involved. So you can start a hop server for a specific project. So -J or -E for the environment. You can specify, just like you would use hop run and say, I want to run a pipeline. You don't have to specify the whole path. It knows the project, so it knows the root folder, and so it just starts that server. And so there are also a bunch of ways to interrogate a running server. So general status gives you a general status of all the um, pipelines, and that is like this one. So you basically get the um, surely that's not running anymore. So we gave people the ability to also get this data in JSON format. So because yeah, uh, my colleagues are already building dashboards using some React and stuff like that. And it's easier to get the JSON from that server. So just like we had XML equals yes, we now have JSON equals yes. Um, what was also done for um, Sergio and a bunch of people. So if you have a very large workflow, you can now use the middle button of your mouse to move around, and um, it's a little bit easier to navigate. There were a bunch of bugs that prevented you from working with very large workflows. Um, so that at 100%, if it's, you know, it's still too large. Again, we wouldn't recommend you building these kind of things. This is more for the exception than the rule, I guess. Um, but yeah, so now that that works very smoothly again, it's very easy to work with these very large pipelines and workflows. What is also something that we did is make the hop certain things context sensitive. So if it's already disabled, we don't need to show the disable option, right? So that comes in a bunch of scenarios. For example, um, for unit testing, I don't need to specify that I want to flag this as a input data set or a golden data set because there's no unit test enabled for this one. So if I create a unit test for this one, sure, then all of a sudden these things. So polishing, right? A lot of polishing that keeps going on, and the more feedback you guys send us about how the GUI should react, because a lot of these changes are a few lines of code. It's mostly your feedback that helps us make this experience smoother for you. So if there are things that annoy you, or yeah, we can usually fix those. So yeah, that's the sort of work that's been going on. Um, maybe you can talk a little bit about Java 11, Hans.
Sure. So yeah, 1.0 is out the door. We're working on 1.1, but we're also already looking a bit ahead. So currently Hop is built using Java 8, but Java 8 is nearing its end of life. So we have to, and it's better for the project in a whole. We're starting to move towards Java 11, and also well, we've done a lot of API cleaning up in the past, but we want to be able to keep improving on the API, but we don't want to break plugins created by our developers. So we're merging. We're already working on a 2.0, which will include some changes that might cause breaks in external plugins, but we can communicate in advance. So when 2.0 comes out, the developers can also be ready with porting their plugins to work again. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we've already, let me share a bit.
So yeah, you added a build for it, and it's failing because that's by design.
So yeah, the first step in our Hop orchestration platform, we have a new branch, the 2.0 branch. And the only change I did was tell it to compile using Java 11 instead of Java 8. And well, as expected, this thing isn't working yet, but now we have a branch to start working on to get everything in working order for when we get there. Also, Nicolas has proposed a great improvement on the API side. But we don't want to break external plugins with every release. So we're gonna group all these changes in the 2.0 branch, and yeah, and as with with the project in a whole, we do not really have a timeline, but well, it kind of depends on how many obstacles we face during the development. So 2.0 could be there in a couple of months. It could be a year. Who knows? We'll see where we get. And it also depends on the contributions and how many people are helping us actively develop on this.
Yeah, and there are dependencies also, like for Java 11. That means that we move from Spark 2.4 support to Spark 3x support on the Beam side, which is Spark 3 is Java 11 only, and Spark 2.4 is Java 8 only. So the Beam integration for 3.x was wishy-washy, so now that's a lot better already. But yeah, we took our time for that. But yeah, these are the things that just take a little bit of time to figure out. But like Hans said, I don't think it's gonna take us years to do this.
No, well, I'm pretty sure we'll get there. And another thing we're also planning on starting on is our top level graduation. So currently we're part of the Apache Incubator. This is a separate project where all newcomers end up in, and it means you get a bit of parenting. They assign mentors to you, but this also means that there's a bit more red tape compared to a top level project. So when we want to do a release, first we have to vote as a community. Is this piece of software ready to be released? If we agree, we can't release it. There's a second round of voting that has to go on in incubator. So our mentors and the incubating people can also have a look, and they mainly look at they don't look at functionality, but they mainly look at, well, is this piece of software compliant to the Apache standards? Are all licenses in order? Nothing missing? And we've like Bart already said, in the first couple of releases, we've had some discussions with the incubator as well, on things like the licenses and pieces of code that were origin weren't always as clear as they were supposed to be. So pieces of code have been removed to become compliant. And in our latest release, the 1.0 release, no comments were given. So we assume that is very good. And to graduate, it also, like everything in the Apache Foundation, it is a process that has to be followed. So at first you have to complete a checklist, and one of the items on that checklist is you have to have made at least one release, and we've done that. Your name has to be validated. That also already has been done. So the basics of what is needed, we've all checked off those boxes. So now we can start. Well, yeah, as all the other things in Apache, we have to start a vote. So at first, we'll have to start a vote in our own project, asking our committers and the community, do you think we're ready to go top level? I'm pretty sure the answer will be yes. I don't think anyone will oppose to the idea. And then second step is to go to our incubator team and ask, do you think we're ready to graduate? And they will either say, sure, go ahead, or have some remarks we have to solve before we're able to graduate. And when that vote ends positive, the Apache board, which meets once a month on the third Wednesday, apparently, has to give their final go, and then we will hopefully graduate as a top level project. So I think we'll start that community vote.
Soon.
Yeah, soon. It will be when someone has the time to write up the email, and we have to create some draft reports that contain some stuff. But we'll start that vote soon. And once we're a top level project, well, this means we only have to do one vote, so we can go to well, we can up our level, well, up the speed in which we release new features. I think we won't have like a fixed time window, but I guess it will depend on how we as committers decide. Well, yeah, it's ready to. There's a couple of extra features, sure, given to the crowd. We won't wait for 6 months and give you a big release. I think we'll go for those small incremental releases to stay on top of things. I think that's about everything that can be said around this topic.
Yeah, and maybe as a bit of context for those of you who follow the mailing list, with the votes for Hop 1.0, the only pushback we got basically was a couple of people who are a couple of our mentors started arguing that it's probably more appropriate to do the graduation first. So the incubator people, the Apache people, consider Hop to be ready for graduation. There may be some wrinkles that we need to iron out, but it looks pretty good. And there will be issues, definitely. We will have some comments to work with, but those will be probably more details rather than big showstoppers.
Yeah, I think we've also accepted that some of these things take time, but they're not always for the worst. I think the project has benefited from a lot of the feedback that we've got. The code is cleaner, the API is cleaner, there's more possibilities for customization. License headers in the test metadata files. There's a lot of stuff that is useful beyond this project. So if a company wants to add a copyright header to the pipelines and workflows, they can do that now without any breakage. So there's a lot of stuff that's really beneficial. I think most important next step is 1.1. We continue to fix a lot of bugs. I think we're already, I don't know how many, 50 or something bug fixed. let's see, releases.
We're at
1.1.
48
64,
issues done.
48.
48 issues done, 6 in progress. So yeah, that's a lot, right? I've been uh, I've been fixing small things left and right. So yeah, the that is going really well. So 1.1 in a few weeks, I think we'll start the release process for that, so that we have a 1.1 in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe. Like we said, there's no rush, and that's a good thing. I think when we started the incubator process, we were very keen to get stuff done. I think Bart alluded to it. Like, yeah, we were still young and naive, and we wanted to get this thing over and done with.
I think we talked about 2 or 3 months in the incubator.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we go like, why would we? Why? What's the rush? What's the rush? It's better to deliver solid software compared to rushing things. And so yeah, now we're at a really good spot. Um, I think it's time to keep moving things forward. There's a lot of stuff that's on our roadmap. Take a look at it, and if you have any great ideas, we certainly value input around um, transparency in the execution of pipelines and workflows. Right now, this is you execute a pipeline and you see the execution below it. I think it's better to decouple those, um, couple the execution and the design of pipelines while still keeping the link, but so that you can run a pipeline multiple times with multiple variables, for example, multiple parameter values, while still developing. We need more flexibility. So how should that GUI look like? Please join us in the discussion. All the idea. Most of the time, the ideas are more complicated or more valuable than the code itself, because we have a very flexible GUI now. It's easy to create new perspectives. The file explorer perspective, for example, only took a few days. The code already largely existed in the file open dialog, the file dialog that we had to write for Hop Web. And so again, there as well, it's a very first version. It loads the whole directory tree of whatever project you have going. So if you have a million files in there, it probably crashes the GUI. If you're interested in joining the project for writing lazy loading in that thing, it's easy stuff to write. But yeah, there's a lot of these easy things that we can use your help with. If you have a little bit of experience, just join the project. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Also, we're also always looking for subjects that will help us translate Hop in your local language. I think one of the things we're currently missing is like, so we have a couple of languages, but I think we need to mention somewhere in what kind of state they are, if they're actively
Mhm.
being completed, or if they're like more like in an alpha or beta phase. So that the users do not have like super high expectations for some of the languages, because a lot of things still need to be uh, looked at again or added. So we're always looking for people that want to join on that. We're also thinking, well, we're also gonna make it possible to have. Currently, our documentation is English only. Um, that as well. We're planning on making the website multilingual, but yeah, unfortunately, we only have our set of languages that we know, and we'll
Yeah,
need
and
your
chicken
help to.
egg. We haven't built in internationalization in the website because there are no translations, and because there's no internationalization, people don't translate. So we have to provide the functionality and then accept translations.
But you did work, Hans, on versioning the documentation. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if you go to our docs, you will automatically go to if you go to let's open this again.
hopapache.org.
Yes. So if you end up in the user manual, you'll see at the top. So by default, you'll go to the latest version. But now we also have the 1.0, which is linked to to our release. And when you use the Hop 1.0 client, you will go to the relevant version. So if we have new fields that are being added to certain transforms,
Can you go to Hop server on the left hand side?
Yes.
On the bottom somewhere. So just Hop server and then select latest, and then you see the documentation update basically.
Correct.
So that's an example of the versions. So the Hop server things were stuff that I added for 1.1. So maybe there should be something like development and a link to latest. It would be 1.0, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Maybe we
guess.
can
Whatever.
we could switch it around. Yeah, because this isn't released. This actually isn't released. Yeah. Point taken. Create a ticket and I'll fix it.
Oh. Speaking of tickets, so we know that there's quite a few projects underway with Apache Hop. If you have any issues, please help us out by creating Jira tickets with plenty of details. That helps us out. Especially, PDI kettle migration projects. There's been quite a few of them. I've did a few myself, but we don't always catch all the issues or all the small details. But those that import tool is evolving quite quickly, thanks to your feedback. We can also, if you're doing a hop project, we can also use your help. You can always come and talk about it in one of the next Hot Hop Hangouts. Talk a little bit about what you found good or bad or working or not working. And that would be very valuable.
Absolutely.
Not just for us as a project, but obviously for the viewers and people that are maybe interested in doing the same. We try to do one business-oriented session, and then 2 weeks later, a more technical deep dive around a certain topic.
Yeah, and we still need to build the agenda. We'll come up with topics as soon as possible, but well, even better than us coming up with topics is you coming up with topics, because that then we know it's a real life question, a real life use case, and if it's valuable for you, I guess it's valuable to a lot of people, as a lot of other people as well. People seem to be a bit reluctant to speak up, but that's absolutely not necessarily. Nobody has 10 years of experience with Hop, so we're all pretty new to this, and it's absolutely okay to to have some doubts, to be searching for information. That doesn't matter. I mean, can still be a valuable topic to talk about, even if it's just to start a discussion.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
also next to these hangouts where we have topics, the idea has been going around to have like the, how do you want to call it, open office hour, where there's actually no agenda and you can just come in and ask some questions and we'll try to answer them, or show how it's done, or swear that it can't be done and create a ticket to implement something to make it able to do it. So we have this idea to create these sessions as well. So yeah, we would
Yeah,
love
I
to
can.
know if you like the idea.
So this week somebody asked about what should we build for processing events, or and I said, well, you can create a queue. So maybe I can just quickly show that what I've been working on the last couple of days. And so this is sort of like the idea is that I have a folder filled with files, right? And they're like 100 records in file 100 and 200 record or 199 and so what I want to do is process these on two hop servers. So just a simple hop server, and the other one is 8881 and 8882. So what this workflow tries to do is say, okay, I have two hop servers. Um, so the hop servers here, 1 and 2. And so in this workflow, I'm basically saying I'm creating some metadata in my system saying I have two servers, server 1 and server 2, that I can use, and they're both active, and they can have 5 active pipelines or workflows running at the same time. And so the next thing is it creates a couple of indexes, and then it populates a file queue. So it gets all the CSV files, adds it to the file queue. So this is a Neo4j node, but you can do the same with a relational database, and it adds a queue date. And so the next thing that it does is it continues to repeat until that queue is empty. And the way that it does that is it checks the hop servers, how many are active, what's the load on the servers, and it starts to process these things. So if so, but there's a lot of stuff going on, right? So how do you check a hop server? In the past, I had like this get server status whatchamacallit, a transform. There was a step in the past, there was a plugin. So I wrote that a new for hop server so that you can just simply have a new icon to check on the load of a hop server, and we keep track of it. The repeat until was also something that was ported over. And so what's also cool is that I debugged the ability to process a file remotely. So, uh, so processing a file remotely um, happens by using a dynamic remote execution. Here we go. So dynamic remote basically says, I'm not going to hard code the hop server to use. I'm going to use a variable, right? And apparently there was like a bug in there. So by going through this whole example, because somebody asked for this example, I debugged even those like very hard use cases. But now what we have is a completely load balancing example for processing tasks on a bunch of servers. So what is left is adding a little bit of glue code behind it to, for example, start up a bunch of hop servers on Docker containers. And so now we have at most 5 of them running at the same time at all given times. So when they're done, it detects it a bit later. It's like a slow loop, and then it starts a bunch of others. And on the other one, I think it's the same thing. So there's always like a couple running, 5 at the most. So this is keeping those 2 servers up and running, and it's processing those 100 files as quickly as possible. So that's pretty cool. And so yeah, those hard examples, keep them coming. I'll be adding this example to the Hop samples project somewhere in 1.1 so that you can pick it up, and the bug fixes are inbound as well. All right. But yeah, these simple things, just like a couple of pipelines and workflows, they create like a whole framework for load balancing, for structurally processing tasks in parallel. You can make the evaluation of the queue as simple or as complex as possible if you want to add dependencies. But the basic structure is here, and we can then point towards that. This is more like a high-level example, but it's one that keeps coming back. Another one that keeps coming back are, how do I use examples against GCP, and how do I how do I work with these things? So we'll try to add more documentation where it makes sense, but yeah, we know best where to point our attention is if you come with feedback. All right. Hope I'm still transmitting. Stop sharing. There we go.
So, any questions, remarks? Have you tried Hop 1.0? Do you like it, hate it? What sucks in Hop 1.0 would be good to know.
Well, maybe that's a great topic for our next session. I remember doing a kettle sucks talk at one point where everybody could explain their pet peeve, and we can do the same. Just prepare your favorite bugs and let us know. If not,
Then I guess we're done.
yes. Thank you all for joining.
Okay. See you in 2, max 3 weeks.
Sure.
Well,
Cool.
a lot of us will see each other sooner, I guess. But
Have a wonderful evening, night. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Nice work.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Nice work.
Bye.
Bye.